Hello, and welcome back to the Whole Being Podcast. I am your host, Ego, and this is episode 6, I believe. I hope you guys are doing really well. I hope everyone is feeling good today. I am. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling much better. I had a bit of a rough week, and most of it centered around just thinking through the year now that we're at these last couple of months. I'm getting the ember fever, that October, November, looking towards the year feeling. And that feeling is really twofold for me because my birthday is also in November. So it's just there's usually just a lot going on during that time. But I hope you are doing good. I hope you are feeling great. I know that at this point it's almost cliche to say the year has gone by fast, but that does happen every year. Also, our years recently have been packed with so much activity. So it just almost seems like you blink and then the rest of the year is gone. But that's kind of how I feel. And if you're like me and you've been reflecting on your goals, I hope you're being kind and finding ways to be easy on yourself, regardless of where you fall on the spectrum, whether you have looked back at your goals and things seem to be looking good, or you've looked back at your goals and you're not quite where you wanted to be or where you think you should be. I hope either way you are being nice to yourself. And this is a note to self for me too. One thing I've been doing for the past 2 years is I haven't been setting resolutions at the beginning of the year. I've more been getting into the habit of setting intentions. And I'm not going to go so much into it in this video, but it does make a slight difference. Setting an intention for the year, I think, causes you to always look inward first. I have found that before I started doing that, in the years where I would set resolutions were usually more like boxes that I needed to tick as times went on, and the goals often overlapped with perceptions of others or things that were just out of my control, but mostly things that I didn't really have any control of and were often like superficial to measure. But you set an intention, regardless of where you are, you can always reframe, you can always reassess, but it calls you to be more inward looking. And I guess the reason why I'm even bringing all of this up is if you find that you are looking at the goals, intentions, whatever you set at the beginning of the year, and you're looking towards the end of the year and you find that you are still, or like you're far from where you thought you were going to be, where you want to be, I hope you know that you can feel the despair, but you shouldn't let yourself sit in the state of despair. It's okay if you don't feel the best about it, but you can re-strategize, you can reorganize things, and it's okay if some of those goals extend into next year. Your goals are yours. You set them. You can go at whatever pace you want to go at. You can look at what you're capable of doing, and if the goals seem too lofty for you to achieve, be realistic with yourself. If they're too lofty for you to achieve within the time frame, like I said, they are your goals. You can extend the time frame. You can make it a point to start by doing the bare minimum. If doing 100% seems like it's too much, to maybe do 50%, 25%, if that's what you're even able to do at the time. Your goals are yours. You know what pace you can move at. You know what is on your plate. Don't look at someone else's plate and try to move at their own pace. You don't know what their situation is. Yes, I just wanted to get that out of the way. Also, if you are listening to this, then you are probably also watching it as well. I'm testing out the Spotify video podcast feature. So I'm recording a video of this. I don't know that if it extends to other platforms. I'm going to also try to put this on my YouTube as well. So if you want to watch it, I would put it up for you to watch. But yes, I am going to upload this in video format to Spotify to test out that feature. And I just wanted to point that out for anyone who is listening, so you know that that's an option. But yeah, on to today's episode. Today's episode is more, I think, free form. I don't know. It's free form for me because I didn't go through my official way of outlining the episodes. That's why I say it's free form. See, if you're watching this on Spotify, you can see me doing the air quotes. But if you're not, just know that I'm doing air quotes. But in today's episode, I wanted to share 4 truths that you should remember, that you should keep in mind for when adulting feels hard, for when things feel hard. At first, I wanted to title this four truths to keep in mind for when you're growing up in your 20s. But then the more I think about it, I'm pretty sure this extends to adulting whenever they are reminders. And I don't imagine that you won't need reminders for adulting in your 30s as well. So I just decided to, open it up to everyone because I didn't want it to be limiting. But yeah, I wanted to share four things that I have gotten into the habit. So I try to remember myself on the days when things are hard. And I also think that most of these will apply to you in whatever field you find yourself in, whether you are a creative professional or a quote unquote non-creative professional. But I know that most of my audience have typically been adults and professionals who have it in mind to dabble in some sort of creative endeavor on the side and are looking for ways to unblock themselves, remove creative blocks. But most of the things that I share are also applicable to people who don't have any creative endeavors in mind that they're necessarily pursuing, right? Because one thing I find about advice that is given to creatives is that it also applies to almost every lived experience. And that is not a strange thing to me. I do believe, and I've often said that living life in itself is not that different from like the creative journey. I know some people consider themselves to be non-creative at all because of the specific path that they've taken in life, but I don't think that anyone's journey is lacking of creativity, whether you are in STEM or you are in whatever field you find yourself in. There's that. Just wanted to put that caveat out there. But let's get into these lessons. I've tried to put these four truths in four easy to remember phrases. And the first is, I can do hard things. I remember a couple of months ago, I think over a year ago now, I made a video about choosing your hard and how some of the most important small or big decisions that you will make in life comes down to choosing your hard, because you find that even when you're making decisions that are good for you, it's still going to be hard, especially if you're making decisions that require actions that you haven't had to practice. You're setting new goals, you're forging new paths. A lot of it is going to be you walking unknown paths, going to be you trying to learn new habits or unlearn old habits or old mindsets, old ways of thinking. So you find that you have chosen a certain path for yourself, right? And some days it seems like you're making progress. Some days it just seems like you're not making any progress. Or some days it feels like you've relapsed, right? First of all, keep in mind that growing up, learning any new skill, practicing any new skill is not linear. Most often it is I don't know, think of it like a graph, but sometimes it can feel really cyclical. Like you learn something and then you almost go through a phase where you're proficient at that thing, and then you find yourself either at the beginning of the drawing board where you're learning something new, or you find yourself learning the exact same thing that you just learned before but at a different level, if that makes sense, right? So on those days where you feel like things are hard, it can be comforting, it can be encouraging for you to edify yourself with those words. I can do hard things, right? You don't have to think of, instead of phrasing it as like, I wish this were easy, I want to find ways to make this easy. Sometimes that is just not what's going to happen. Sometimes there is no easy way to do something, but acknowledging that I am doing a hard thing, but I can do hard things. Keep in mind that you are doing something that is good, but it's hard. But going back to the way you were before is not necessarily easy either, right? Living a life that you don't want to live, making decisions that you don't want to make, or putting yourself in environments that that you know are not good for you is not easy. It is difficult to live in spaces that you have either outgrown or you just feel uncomfortable with, or you just know it's inherently not good for you. It's not you. It's not who you want to be. It's not how you want to present yourself in the world. It's not how you want to express yourself. That is hard as well. So if you have chosen a road less traveled and you have chosen a path that is not easy, you can do it. It's hard. You can do it. You don't have to think of making it easy. You don't have to depend on or rely on tactics that will quote unquote make you easy. Some things are hard. They're meant to be hard, right? If it were easy, everyone would do it, is what they say. So I can do hard things. 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 Say it to yourself as many times as it will take for you to get your feet off the ground and walk slowly towards your destination. Okay? The second phrase is a derivative of the first. It's going to sound very similar, and it is, I am doing hard work. I'm doing hard work. It is very important for you to acknowledge, recognize the difficulty of what exactly it is that you're trying to do. Whether you are learning a new habit, learning to be a different type of person, learning to grow in a different direction, or learning to not be the way you were before. You are doing something that is very difficult. You're taking little steps every day, bit by bit, determined to show up in a way that is true to you in the world. That is not an easy thing for you to do. So you have to recognize that you're doing something that is hard. Everybody doesn't do it. You would be shocked at the amount of people that are just going through life, just, blazing in the wind. They're not actively making decisions that impact their own life, which, is a decision in and of itself. If you're not taking a decision, is a decision by itself. You're just, not the one in control. You're not the one directing the path that you're taking in your life. So that is a decision. You're letting someone else take the lead. But if you are doing that, recognize that what you're doing is hard, especially if most of your adulthood is dealing with trauma. And I hope to God this isn't a minimization of what trauma is, right? It also is on a spectrum and looks different to everyone. But keep in mind that when you are traumatized, you have been told a story over time. You have been convinced to define yourself and define circumstances in a certain way. You have been told a particular story about who you are, how you show up, what you like, what you don't like, what you can achieve, what you can't achieve, what you are deserving of, what you are worthy of, right? A lot of those things are things that have been deeply embedded in you. So the journey of recovering from that trauma requires a lot of rewriting those stories with a story that you actively choose, or a story that's, even if you haven't chosen, you're being more deliberate in how it's unfolding. And those stories are hard to shake. They are hard to rewrite. This is hard work that you are doing. And the reason why it is very important for you to not underestimate it and for you to acknowledge it and recognize it for what it is not to encourage laziness or encourage complacency. Nobody's telling you to just sit and not do anything and just, that's just the way things are. No, you have to acknowledge how hard something is so that you can be more intentional in how you choose what you choose to take on, how much you choose to take on. It helps you to be more intentional about what exactly you can carry at different points in time. It makes your journey overall more productive. It makes your journey overall more impactful, and it helps you to be more intentional about where your energy goes. You have to make sure that you're accounting for the work that you're doing, for the hard work that you're doing. You may not be able to do it all the time because, sometimes things are happening on such a subconscious level. You don't always recognize it until after the fact. But if you at least make it a point to not minimize the small strides that you're making and recognize that you're doing something that is very hard. You're doing work not just for yourself, but that will impact your future generations and the people that are currently in your circle. Then you will make space for rest. It's a very important point that I didn't even know I was getting at, but yeah, you will make space for rest. You will schedule rest because you recognize it for the important thing that it is. You won't just carry on carrying on. You recognize that you're doing hard work. Okay, I'm doing very, very hard work. I am doing hard work. I am doing hard work, so I deserve rest. Tag that on. I am doing hard work, so I deserve rest. You do. You do deserve rest. Okay? Make time for it. So the third phrase is I am allowed to tread lightly. I am allowed to tread lightly. You see how these are all leading to the same points. It's like being in a circle of words that are soothing, that all kind of feed into each other, right? I can do hard things. I am doing a hard thing. I am allowed to tread lightly. There is a quote that I love by Aldous Huxley. He's a writer, philosopher, poet. I don't know, but even though I like the quote, he has some political views that are very, very, very troubling. And I hated finding out about his stances on some political views. It kind of marred, it kind of spoiled some of the earlier good things that I had learned about him. But I still love the words. And he says, it's dark because you're trying too hard. Lightly, child, lightly. Learn to do everything lightly. Yes, feel lightly, even though you feel deeply. Just lightly let things happen and lightly cope with them. There are quicksands all around you, drowning you, pulling you down, sucking at your feet, trying to suck you down into fear and despair and self-pity. And that is why you must walk so lightly, child. Walk lightly. And these are such important words because what is adulting if not reparenting yourself? And sometimes we forget that as you're reparenting yourself, you haven't been here before. Unless you know something that I don't know, this is your first time living this particular life that you're living here on earth. So a lot of things that you're going to be doing, a lot of decisions that you're going to be making, you have to make it boldly, make your mistakes sometimes, reassess, go back to the drawing board. But even in the most cyclical of times, when it seems like you're going around in circles, you still have to tread lightly. You still have to keep in mind that a lot of the leaps of faith that you're going to take in yourself are going to be fearful, and especially coupled with the fact, if you're being realistic, that there are many steps that you're going to do, there are many things that you're going to do that won't yield quote unquote successful results. But how you handle yourself in those moments is what really determines how you're going to move forward. Right. So, in reparenting yourself, keep in mind, especially when you're delving into the unknowns, you're dealing with feelings that you don't even know anything about. You're taking baby steps. And the thing I love the most about that phrase, taking baby steps, is we sometimes only think of baby steps as, tentative and unknown and half-hearted, but you forget that taking baby steps means taking very unsure, wholehearted, but unbalanced steps into the unknown, right? That's what babies do when they're walking. And babies fall sometimes, it's soft falls, but sometimes they're hard falls, and it hurts and they cry, but eventually they keep getting at it. They learn to walk and then they learn to run. So yes, tread lightly, but also realize that the only way to get to where you're going, especially if it's something that you haven't done before, is to stumble through it at first. You're going to stumble through it at first. So take it easy, take it lightly, and remind yourself of that if that isn't something that you've been doing already. And the fourth truth is good things happen in the unknown. Take it from someone who has had to start over many different phases in her life over time. I've had to delve into the unknown. The thing that I always remind myself of is I have an active imagination, which most of us do, right? The reason why we worry all the time, that's what worrying is. You are using your delusions to create the most fantastical worst case scenarios, right? And it's not because those things aren't a reality somewhere, or like there's no possibility of those things happening. But the truth is they haven't happened yet. And if they haven't happened yet, then you are worrying about something that doesn't even exist yet and may never even happen, right? But if you're going into the unknown and it's scary, keep in mind that most of it is your imagination, and just the same way you can use your imagination to craft up, like some people can craft up the most like deliciously horrific points of view. But there is another side to that same imagination. You can sit still for a while and use that imagination to come up with some beautiful pictures, right? I'm not a huge fan of toxic positivity. I'm a huge fan of it's sometimes going to feel wretched. Sometimes you're just going to have to sit with the bad feelings. You have to feel the feelings and navigate them for what they are. Sit in it for a while. Sometimes listen to what they're trying to tell you. So I'm not saying, this isn't Cinderella. There aren't birds, or I do hear birds actually right now loud, but there aren't birds in the sky. I'm not saying, go all Aurora and go into your mind and just stumble in through the woods like nothing bad ever happens. No, be realistic in setting your goals, but don't dream up the worst case scenarios. Don't plan for the worst. Plan for the best. You are going into the unknown. And the reason why going into the unknown is scary, and rightfully so, is because you don't know what could happen. I have found myself to be getting more and more excited about where things are going lately, even if I don't know where things are going, because I begin to realize more and more and more, it's beginning to sink in more and more and more, that when I'm faced with the unknown, something good could also happen, right? It's in the unknown, that's where miracles happen. That's where like the unexpected things can change. So if you go in with that mindset, you will be more excited to take big leaps, right? Because if you take big leaps, then you will soar even higher. So wherever you find yourself these days, I hope these words will be comforting for you to know now. But I also hope it is something that you can put in your pockets and carry on with you as the days in front of you unfold. I've definitely found them to be helpful myself over the past couple of months. And I won't lie, there are days when like being reminded of these words annoy me, like when you're like deep in states of despair and things just don't seem to be looking up, or it seems like you're facing the same issues or problems or circumstances again. It's just like, like not again, like I thought I was past this. And to be and in those moments, to be totally honest, these words are they're a little harder for me to grasp, but almost in a way that like I find myself rolling my eyes when I say it, but eventually it does soothe me. it does bring me back to center. And I hope it'll do the same for you. Let me know what you think about them in the comments. I have been getting some really nice, really great in-person reviews in my DMs and my text messages. I can't tell you guys how much that means to me. That's something I call them flighty words, but the flighty words that just float around in my head. I'm glad that it is useful and it is encouraging and affirming to someone outside of myself. It is all I want to do. It is all I've ever wanted to do, is to sit and share what is on my mind, even if the thoughts have no end in sight, if that makes sense. But I'm glad that you're finding it helpful. What would be even more helpful than you sending me, like I said, I appreciate the private, the personal, really long, really boisterous reviews. I appreciate them more than you will ever know. There are no words to express my gratitude. So if you do have those thoughts, please leave them in the actual public domains. Okay, you can leave it on Spotify. You can leave a review on Spotify. Give it a rating, a 5-star rating, if you will. Give it a rating, okay, on Apple Podcast. I'm even uploading some of the episodes to SoundCloud now, because if you leave a positive review, then the podcast does get pushed out more. So if you think this is really something good, then we should want it to reach more people. Like I said, I appreciate the feedback. Let me know what you think in the comment sections. If you have any more questions, and I think I've said it before, but I just want to reiterate, if you have anything in particular any questions that you have that you'd want me to talk about, things that you want me to share my perspective, my thoughts on, let me know. And not just in the comments of the podcast or the video, if you're watching this on YouTube, but also you can DM me. You can DM me, you can email me on my Instagram, on the Instagram at the whole bean pod. Or my personal Instagram, Ego Efere, no underscore, no dashes, nothing, just IGHOEFERERE. But yeah, that has been it for today's episode. I hope you are taking care of yourself. Okay, I'm sending you all my love. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you on the next episode. Bye.